Hey, what's up? This is Theo, and today you are going to learn exactly how you can create framing around your offer, your brand, your business model without feeling like you're selling your soul, but also without burning out and also without feeling into things where you lack data, you lack metrics, and maybe you don't know how to actually convert the attention that you are getting on things like Instagram, short format platforms, or long format platforms such as YouTube. Now, before we get started, just know that statistically, in a Google review, it was shown that about 60% of people who make above six figures spend time on Instagram. About 80% of the individuals who make over six figures spend the most time on YouTube. And so this is exactly why, after many months of pushing off YouTube, procrastinating and finding all these rationalizations and justifications and fucking excuses to not launch the YouTube full-blown and become consistent in that, I decided to take it seriously, get the right framework and structure, and before I knew it, I was so happy with the results, with the progress of lead conversion and buyer cycle becoming shorter. I'm going to get a little bit into that. There's plenty of videos where I've gone in depth on the screen to show you exactly how that works to create pre-sold leads on demand from the top of funnel, which would be Instagram and DMs, sell by chat. This is something that took me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I would say well over $550,000 in investing into my own personal skill set, acumen, competency, and strategies. It's really about understanding that the master has a cookbook. The real wizard has a freaking cookbook. The consultant or the coach has a solution, but the master has a cookbook. And after $30 million of client results over the last 3 years, that's just a reflection showing that not only do I love helping people make more money than I do, in fact, I've helped many people become 8-figure entrepreneurs, but I'm still just a little 7-figure coach, okay? 7-figure hypnotherapist. And what this is all about, in my experience, if you want to stop being taken for granted, if you want to stop feeling undervalued and isolated because you know you have such quality work, you know you have such important messaging to bring to the world based on your authentic story and voice and magic. One thing that I'd like to point out, that I point out constantly to my clients when they're first on board within 45 minutes, is the lack of optimization of their bio on Instagram and how their story sales sequence isn't quite making the mark because they're not measuring the conversion rate on their story sales sequences, and they're not aware, okay, of the KPIs of when someone does follow them. Like, let's say I teach them how to run a position profile follower ad at a low cost to fill the top of funnel. They wouldn't know exactly how to leverage human-based building authentic relationships in the DMs with the power and speed and leverage of AI support with DM closing, okay? So this is about getting clarity about what will actually progress things forward. And to be quite frank, I remember when my mentor told me how to create impact, and that the only way to create impact would be to observe things that we go through on a day-to-day basis and consciously just compare ourselves in an inspiring way to other people maybe doing better than us. And that's what is so beautiful about gamifying life and competing, because it truly creates innovation, creativity, and connection with God's will, with this outflow of infinite spiritual energy. In fact, the hardest times in my life when I felt so frustrated and butthurt and victimized because people just wouldn't get it, even though I was good at talking to people, I overcame social anxiety. I couldn't just get people to follow through on things that I wanted to do, and invite them to. And some call this ghosting, flaking, having people be unresponsive. And I know a lot of you guys watch my videos because you want to learn how we're able to get these high conversion rates, 60 to 80% conversion rates on offers without sales calls or live launches, which are just exhausting and turn you into a slave to your business. People want to learn how to stop posting and hoping on the content hamster treadmill and continue to speak to brokies, tire kickers, and of course, all these low intent, skeptical people who don't even trust your process by the time they even hear a pitch, by the time they're even qualified to get a pitch. And so the purpose of today's video is to make sure that you're aware of, I think that one of the coolest things about life is that it's a blank canvas. And with leadership comes with a certain price that you must pay. And that price is choosing to not be at the effect of this fabrication of separation, to not be at the effect of how you feel about a certain circumstance, but rather how to choose to be someone in the world who is at the cause of how they feel. This is called state control, your ability to enter and leave emotional states very quickly at will without spiritual bypassing. And when you are able to channel your emotions, which are neither good or bad, they're just energy, okay? And channel that into creativity, painting on the canvas of life, which is the blank canvas, you'll understand that you can in fact make a lot of impact on a lot of people's lives. And today was a beautiful day. I just spent a few hours writing handwritten notes and sending gifts to my clients for really trusting in me and helping them scale their coaching offer past 50K to 100K months. We've already helped 98 people hit 50K to 100K months, and 137 people hit 10 to 20K months. And there's a healthy level of pride. And I think that's important to recognize when we're just kind of wanting to do our best, live with conviction, live with charisma, and have a sense of humor by not taking ourselves so seriously. And I think that that's important for us to understand. How do you get your competitive edge? How do you position yourself as different from your competitors, okay, while still abiding by certain principles in business that apply to all people at all places at all times? And the way that we're able to do this, okay, when it comes to creation, is by me telling you about a story of me going to serve in Hawaii at this training. We did a leadership sales system training, and I love Hawaii. It's beautiful, but there was a much smaller crowd, and I was telling everybody that I wanted to ask them a certain question about why they thought that I would go to Hawaii, when I knew that if I was not in Hawaii and I was in maybe let's say New York City or LA, that it would be a bigger turnout, and that I could probably 10x the revenue, okay, and the reach with that live event instead of being in Hawaii. Okay, why would I choose to go to a place where I know there's going to be a smaller turnout? Okay, the reason why is because I'm clear on my values. It's the same reason why I was telling people that, you know, when people flex online, I used to do this too when I was making tons of money in the music industry. Then I quit because of addiction and delinquency. Back in 2016, I burnt out, chronic fatigue, people pleasing, all this depression, anxiety, stuff like that, right? Addiction. The reason why I share that is because I did the same mistake again without learning the lesson, which as a hypnotherapist scaling to 7 figures in 2023, and I did a little bit of business coaching, consulting too for other like consultants and healers and coaches. I started to get into that flexing mode. Oh, the travel, the abundance, the luxury, the nice car, the insane expenses of living in this penthouse that was like $7,000 a month. Okay, and that's really not that much, but the lesson that I remember I used to teach is that I would tell people, like, yo, what do you think it shows, or what do you think it implies or subcommunicates to the audience when someone is marketing on their sports with their sports car in the background, or sharing their luxurious living space? What is that actually subconsciously marketing to? And what it really is showing is that you're basically just not retarded. You basically, and I know that sounds really nasty to say, right? AKA like getting your shit together is quite simple. But the reality is that it just means that someone was able to kind of try some stuff, trial and error, make some mistakes, then learn some lessons, and then of course just calm down and sit down, be present to the moment, as Eckhart Tolle says, breathe deeply, and just trust the present moment and merge with your soul, merge with the now, and allow yourself to hold space for this version of you that has terrible trash standards. And so that version of you is obviously entertaining a lot of noise, a lot of dumb conversations that really don't lead anywhere. There's no context to those conversations. And when you're stuck in that miasma of coping, of settling, of justification, and filling your calendar with this flurry of activity, okay? Kicking up a dust of flurry of activity, but that is not leading somewhere better financially, better when it comes to free time, not stressing about the bills or worrying about where your next client's going to come from, but rather increasing your level of impact and reputation in the industry, which is what's called absolute status. You have built trust and credibility with other people in your industry or in other industries, and that takes patience. that takes effort. And once you get to this level where you've automated and you've delegated and you've harnessed your power, you've delegated your power to other people, you begin to understand that it's less about taking control of your life and saying yes and being open-minded. And it becomes more about, I would say, once you get to at least 30 to 40K months, becomes a lot more about saying no and protecting your time, knowing that your time is being attacked constantly with inboxes of people wanting to take you out for dinner, wanting to take you out on coffee dates, wanting to pick your brain, wanting to do a little jam sesh and collab. Okay, you're going to get tons of messages once you build up your brand, where the power of no becomes an important skill set and competency for you to discern. Okay, and that's where letting go of control and releasing control is so important when it comes to, again, making sure that you're only spending time with high leverage processes and listening to the right people. Okay, people who have the results that you want. Be very mindful of listening to people who seem to have all the answers but yet don't have the results or don't have the client results. Okay, so back to the story. I asked my clients, okay, who are at that live training, and I said, why is it that when I go to Hawaii and I'm losing an opportunity cost of $100,000 because I'm having this training with a much smaller audience? Why is it that I would take a pay cut going to this place? Okay? And why am I okay with that? Well, it's because I have curated my values, which have changed before I was aware of it over time. It used to be much about the validation, the accolades, the wins, right? The status. And then it became more about philosophy of family, vitality. Okay? It became more about community branding and elevating my spiritual energy to the point where I can truly just create marketing by just walking out here like in nature, like I am right now. And how is it that that is more valuable to me now? Things like taking care of my family, taking care of my people. Well, it's because when I go to Hawaii, I know that that's valued at $100,000. So that sunset that I'm watching with my loved ones or my clients, that's what that's worth to me. But that doesn't translate or isn't easily understood. Sometimes there's some cognitive dissonance to people who have a very low value for their time because they haven't audited and diagnosed the value of their time, okay? They haven't done that. They're trying to solve things before diagnosing things. And so the reason why I'm sharing that is because you are like that rare sunset that's valued at $100,000, or that rare sunset that's valued at $1 million, okay? But if you're not aware of opportunity cost, then you're gonna what? Take it for granted, because I know for sure that all the people who were local to Hawaii, they were telling me constantly, well, you know, the beach, it's right down the street, I'll just always go. It's always there, it's always available, okay? And so where am I going with this? The point here is that people don't appreciate things that they do not invest into. And I've even been in masterminds where the founder of that mastermind, where we paid $20,000 to be a part of that weekend, he gave us a few questions on sheets of paper with some pens and some blank paper. And we were all multiple 6, multiple 7, even 8-figure entrepreneurs back at the time. This is 2 years ago. And he told us to just figure out our problems together, network, and commit to the result, enjoy the process, okay? And we got ROI on that. It was insane. I got like a 7x ROI on that within the first 90 days from that live event. But he wasn't sitting up there and talking about, well, you know, this digital course that I built for you guys, I just spent so much time tinkering around. You know, oh, does it work on the TV? Oh, does it? Okay, now we gotta test it on the iPhone. Okay, now we gotta test it on the Android. Does it work on the tablet? Okay, yeah, no. Anyone who tells you, oh, it's so creative, you know, be creative and create a digital product, they are fucking lying to you. It is not fun to create a digital product. I've made millions of dollars with digital products. It's a pain in the fucking ass. It is a pain in the ass. Okay, the fun part is when you get to go out and promote it on content, but in no way, shape, or form is building a digital product that actually has systems to get people accountable and results fun, okay? It's not fun, okay? So when we did that, it was mind-blowing because we paid the money, okay? We had skin in the game, and that just goes to show you how it's important to see how if people don't invest at the level that you know that you should be charging, you think you're helping them. You're not, okay? They're not gonna get the value of your high quality work. And the biggest mistake anyone could assume is that your product, just because you have a good product doesn't mean you understand what gets high level for sophisticated people to buy, which is understanding the neuroscience behind, okay, time, identity, money, energy, reputation, speed, simplicity, consistency. Okay, what about paradigm shifting and helping someone to see that every truth is but a half truth? Obviously, all my clients, all my community know that, and that changes as you go up. A perfect example of this is when we were having a positioning masterclass on why is it that a guru can get away with saying, just be yourself, just be authentic. Yeah, you're enough. And that my positioning statement to spin that on its head was to say that, well, let's say you're a taker. Let's say you're only thinking about what you want to get, and you're always just constantly afraid of what you can lose. And you're just kind of just sitting there in this exhausting decision fatigue, not taking any action, and just expecting to meditate and manifest millions without taking any action, but rather to just continue to beat yourself up and to identify with your business, letting that drag your self-esteem around with the lagging indicator of your incoming being feast and famine. Well, if you're always needy and you're always creepy and you're not asking yourself what do other people want and how can I position myself in their life to get leverage on themselves so they can get more of what they want faster and avoid the pitfalls of mistakes that they don't need to be making, what if be yourself is not good advice? What if technically, okay, by scientific fact, that you are not enough because you would know that the universal language of rich people is the gift of giving comes first before expecting to receive. Now, I'm not telling people to be codependent and giving and not setting up a sales funnel for you to receive, but I am saying that even in the Bhagavad Gita, even in these ancient spiritual texts, Ayn Rand, with the fountainhead, and things like that, right? It's about understanding the difference between principle versus context. And context is always going to lead to someone understanding the difference between where they are, where they want to be, so that there's a clear gap of opportunity that they can start to understand the value of investing into their skill set, investing into their self-concept, investing into the environment that will stimulate their energy, and see the value of diamonds becoming diamonds through pressure. That's healthy. Okay, that's healthy. And the way to do that is obviously to raise your standards. But the point around when I was talking about opportunity cost is, okay, where are you deceiving yourself into thinking that if you just give things away and you don't actually understand the brand equity that's saying something like be yourself, what if authenticity is only half true? Okay, I remember there used to be a huge vulnerability movement in 2020, and everyone was just sharing their trauma, right? Remember that shit? And that still works to crazy levels. But when it comes to boundaries, and when it comes to helping people to see that they must earn the vulnerability in some way, shape, or form, it's important to understand that when you don't see yourself as a category of one, you're always going to be competing with the Joneses. Always. And if you're not clear on your zone of genius, this is the work that we do to curate the communication of how you're different, the communication of what your competitors, even if they have a bigger brand than you, why they can be perceived as actually lower value than your business, even if you have a tiny audience. We have many clients. I have clients who have 10,000 followers. They make $40,000 per week consistently. Okay, well, how is that? Well, it's because they understand packaging, positioning, framing, and creating pre-framing on pitches before the pitch, so that their prospects are disarmed, and the prospect also recognizes that it's about knowing the connection that someone has to why what you sell is going to be different and the best solution that nobody else has to their specific, keyword specific problems. And when they solve those top 2 to 3 specific problems, they collapse timelines to the dream outcome. Okay, we call that the promise. And so the last thing I'll leave with, the big takeaway is I want you to really do an audit of how different your results become when you truly focus on your positive qualities and how to have a framework in your mind to transcend your inability to control your state. What about your ability to leverage language and communication and listening so that you can hear what someone means by what they say, not just by what they say, but what they mean by what they say? Because the only reason people lack certainty in their choices is because they have less clarity compared to the level of clarity that they could have. And that clarity is what also builds out the business model so that you can actually stretch your level of presence and stretch your mind for what's possible, showing you that you have so much more capacity when you have massive clarity on best next steps for your situation, your top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, your identity, your community, who's surrounding you, who are you listening to for advice, who is in your life as like in terms of romantic partnerships. Are they supportive of you, or are they just bickering and bitching and moaning and trying to belittle your dreams? I would suggest to see that as an interesting sign that you're ready to truly place yourself at this consciousness, okay, of oneness with the fact that your desires at your heart are divine. Your desires are fucking divine. And when you get to a sophisticated level selling to rich people, you can actually use the same tips and hacks and tricks and gimmicks and breakthrough secrets that you learn on social media and show people that there's a lack of playfulness in how they're communicating, okay, and how they're converting leads. For example, when you say, are you against moving forward today? You can use a playful attitude. Are you against moving forward today? Come on, okay, buy my stuff, okay? If you're struggling with blank, okay, what a lot of my clients realize is that, in hindsight, is that they didn't realize that it was the right move to focus on things that they were perceiving as problems when they were actually symptoms of a root problem, which is blank. That's why they know it's the right move to buy my stuff and to partner with me and to work with us. Okay, now you know how to never feel weird and salesy, okay, and awkward, making it harder on your prospects and audience to buy than it needs to be. Okay, so are you the rare timepiece? Are you the $100,000 sunset? Or are you someone who's always available and gets taken for granted? I know how fucking frustrating that is. It feels like you don't fit in. It feels like you don't belong with the top G coaches, healers, and consultants and founders. It feels like you may not be cut out for this. So let me tell you something. When you choose purpose and you stop filtering your decisions through what we call fire wars in our community, and I'm going to walk you through that before we end, because by the facts of neuroscience, it's more effective for you when it comes to peak performance to just stop the freaking neurotic negative thinking, okay, rather than the positive psychology. Positive psychology is step 2, in my opinion. Step 1 is unrooting and unpacking and having a certain level of atonement for how maybe you just didn't know any better, but that fear, number 1, is a big reason why people don't take action and believe in themselves and believe in their potential. Okay, it's fear of criticism, it's fear of death, fear of poverty, okay, fear of loss of love, okay, fear of those things. Those are big fears that people have, okay, fear of being isolated, okay. But in the world of frame control, which everyone at a high level knows, like front to back, back to front, it's making poverty weird. It's making fear of death strange. It's making fear of poverty like just so like doesn't make any sense. Fear of loss of what? When you want to know how to manifest, I'll make another video on manifestation because I think this is important to just destroy all these beliefs around, oh, it's just about the tools, the hacks, the methodologies around manifestation. Like I those get results to a point, but they're not actually, they don't build momentum. They don't build self-generated momentum. Okay, we'll do another video on that. But when it comes to what about insecurity, right? If you have lack of clarity on your values, on who you are, you're gonna filter your self acceptance through other people's egoic judgments and programming and conditioning. So that's insecurity. Okay, what about the reactiveness that you may have? What about the reactiveness emotionally because you don't put your health first? Okay, you put your kids' health first, or you put your partner's okayness first, or even worse, you put your clients before your wellness, your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual wellness. That's a problem. Okay, what about eagerness? Are you attached out of fear and eagerness? Do you lack patience with yourself or with others? What about worry? Are you constantly looping on the past or the future? Are you having a hard time at being present to the moment? Do you see that there are elements inside of you that can spiral around to help you avoid, okay, the A, which is attachment? Are you attached to certain things? Can you sense that people can sense that inside of you? The law of state transference shows us that when you feel attached, okay, people feel that lack, and that's where a lot of people's content is rooted in scarcity. And that's why that projects out in who they speak to in DMs, who's clicking on their link in bio, and quite frankly, who's signing up to their programs. Okay? What about lack of responsibility, right? What about this R where it's like, okay, you are in resistance because you don't see yourself as a creator. you see yourself as a consumer. Okay, I'm not against consumption, but you live in consumerism culture. This is why it's so sad, and I pity people who don't have these frameworks in their mind, because they're just constantly chasing dopamine and can't regulate themselves because they have such a high tolerance for like what they need to feel on autopilot, and just constantly numb out and disassociate from their potential. So that's not good either. What about S, significance, the need for significance? There's this need for significance that people have, and quite frankly, we live in this kind of industry that is pedestalizing money goals, pedestalizing the need to feel significant, and that kind of mental gymnastics, that game that people play with themselves, it actually stops them and holds them back, keeps them stuck from breaking through that glass ceiling of tripling their conversions. So I encourage you to just meditate on how can you just be conscious and catch yourself around those, the fireworks, those aspects of those levers of fear around your mind. And you'll begin to realize that you feel a little bit more neutral towards your goal. You feel less of the need to prove or to perform for success. And you allow yourself to kind of just tap in, release, and flex into it, and almost kind of just feel like you're just making love to the moment, right? You're like releasing the butthole of your mind. You're pleasuring and stimulating your mind. And I don't know why God created the two funniest metaphors for state control. But if you could release the butthole of your mind rather than control everything, control other people's perceptions of you, when that's obsolete, that's impossible. You can stop controlling. You can allow the flow. You can feel the winner effect before you get the results. You can allow this beautiful outflow of giving, trusting that you'll receive, but not giving to receive. Okay? Super subtle nuance there. And everything when we teach, when it comes to messaging that converts leads on autopilot and attracts more attention, the right attention on autopilot, this is the work that we do in a high proximity space in embodied wealth codes. And we teach people how to truly organize their hybrid offer so that they sell based on price point proximity, knowing that, you know, if I have a group of Align Royalty, people get into their first 10, 20K months. We also have Elite 7 Circle, where people who get from that level and scale up to 50K to 100K months. Well, there's a reason why we segment those, we tier out those offers and programs, is because people want to feel like they're playing with people who are going to pull them forward and hold them to a higher standard than they hold themselves. With my brain power and skill and AI systems to elevate them and get more leverage and speed. So this was a short video. Tried to keep it as short as possible, but I hope you got some value out of that. Let me know down in the comments what was the big takeaway for you, and how are you going to take action on that, okay? And how are you going to allow yourself to be in the frequency of oneness with God, with knowing who you truly are at the core, that there's these elements within you, the earth, the fire, the water, the wind, and that is the true blood and bones of manifestation, okay? And just remember that the spiritual people, they judge the rich people. The rich people look at those spiritual people in the same way, okay? The same way. So this beautiful duality is how God can understand himself. And I hope that this video was valuable for you guys to just take some takeaways. And there's going to be things that you maybe resonate with that you're like, fuck yes, I'm going to implement this now. And there's going to be other shit that like you're like, oh, you know what, this is garbage, this is trash. I'm just going to block this out. I don't resonate with this, okay? But just kind of get curious, right? Get curious about like what is coming in you, and how can you relax your physiology to allow this new information to permeate your consciousness, and just kind of visualize a green laser beam going from your brain to other people's brains the moment you open your voice, your brand voice. Okay, your brand voice is so important, so meaningful, and when you choose the meaning of your core message, people will listen, and the wrong people will get filtered out right through the content. Talk to you guys soon. All right, peace.